Like Sharon mentioned, we hear your feedback. Thanks for participating in the survey. We hear your feedback. We value your feedback. And this is the reason why we come up with the topic for CASB DLP for this month's webinar, partner webinar for APJ. Once again, thank you for joining. So in the next 45, 50 minutes, I'm gonna walking through with everyone about the capabilities of CASB DLP for both inline and offline. Right. So this is our 4 building blocks, part of the Cato SASE in terms of the CASB and the DLP. All right. So we started the journey from inline CASB DLP probably 2 to 3 years ago. Was still in the midst of the COVID, maybe the beginning of the post COVID era. So we started the use case like shadow AI, because that's the moment when we realized that the user moving out of the office, which is hybrid workers, and the users starting to use SaaS application with or without IT consensus. And again, we keep developing CASB DLP from the outer band use cases point of view, which is primarily designed for example, the third-party contractors, BYOD devices, which are the user devices that doesn't allow us to install the agent. And we also realize for some of the device, they probably doesn't allow us to do the TLS inspection. For those type of devices, I think the API CASB DLP would be a great addition to complement this entire Cato SASE CASB DLP functionalities. All right, so these are the 4 building blocks. As a matter of fact, I would like to take one step back before we dive into the 4 services. I would like to ask questions, right? Since this is a very hot topics in demand, talking about CASB DLP. So from our partner point of view, what would be the driving force? What would be the driving force to drive enterprise in this CASB DLP adoption? So what could be the compelling events? I would like to give everyone like 3 seconds pause, and you take a step back, you think about it. How would I start the conversation? How would I begin this conversation with the CIO, the CISO in talking about the CASB DLP adoption? All right, I guess you figured out. It's definitely the AI, because nowadays, starting from 2022, it's the age of AI. It's the AI transformation era right now. We are riding through. All right, so this is the driving force. This is one of the key driving force. This is one of the key compelling events as well to drive the conversation, like an icebreaker to talking to CIO and CISO. So again, this is the ChatGPT moments, right? Starting from 2022, within 5 days, ChatGPT reached the 1 million users. And as of today, make a guess. We have 5 million. We have 5 million users per week using ChatGPT, and this is the most recent Senate AI hearing happens in US. Given the statement given by the OpenAI CEO Sam Altman. Back to May, which is this month, early this month, right? This is a very recent statistics. And remember that this is just ChatGPT only. Imagine we have all kinds of AI tools. Apparently this is the go-to. AI is becoming the go-to tools for all the employee, for all the business users, to improve the productivity, enhance the productivity in day-to-day work. All right. So again, would it be a concern? As we clearly know that the AI tools is always the double-edged sword, right? So the number of the users grows, and together with the rising threat and the risk with the AI adoptions as well. And this is where we come in to talk to CIO and the CISO. All right, what could be the challenge? What could be the pain point? And what could be the hidden things we wouldn't know at this moment, with or without consensus? Then this is where we start to talk about the shadow AI, which evolved from the shadow IT we used to talk a lot. So this is the go-to tools, and we want to enhance the IT oversight on top of the AI. So now we have these 4 key use cases built in terms of building blocks from helping the modern enterprise to riding through this AI transformation era. So first of all, visibility assessment, right? So this is something the key we always would like to highlight to the CISO, to the CIO. We don't know what we don't know clearly, right? So we don't know what the AI tools our employee is using day to day. How can we do enforcement further, right? So assessment, visibility in terms of the shadow IT, shadow AI. This is the key essential building blocks to start with. All right. The second one would be the access control, and this is always based on the zero trust, based on the least privilege access control. For example, we only allow the legitimate user, legitimate device to use the sanctional AI tools. This could be part of my group ID policy, and this is something that we can leverage on the SASE, leverage on CASB DLP to enforce in my environments. Compliance, all right, compliance. This is typically helpful, essential for the compliance team, for the audit purpose, for the regulatory purpose, to enforce the good behaviors when the employees start to use AI tools. Data loss prevention, that's one of the key requirements across the board. I come across a lot in the region. How can we mitigate the risk of the data loss when the modern enterprise embarking the journey of the AI, all right? So we have these four building blocks to help, all right, to help the modern enterprise to embark the journey of AI. So again, I briefly mentioned about from the challenge, from the pain point of view, these are our key engines, the SASE, CASB, DLP engines. We are building, purposely built for address the concern, the challenge for modern enterprise embark the journey of AI, visibility assessment. We don't know what we don't know. Now we need to clearly understand what could be the potential risks, rising risks of vulnerabilities posed to the modern enterprise. Then we can start to think about how can we enforce the best practice for using AI. The last one will be the data loss prevention, protection. That's always the fundamentals in these AI adoptions. Let's dive into it. All right. The first, visibility shadow AI I mentioned about. This is where we started in the beginning of the COVID era. We realized that a lot of applications with or without ID consensus, employees starting using, because the employee is not working at office. The employee could be working from anywhere, any part of the world, using SaaS, cloud service, internet services. Now this is evolving into the unsanctioned AI, which is a shadow AI use case. This is pretty common, one of the rising concern on top of the CIO and the CISO's top of mind as well. We don't know what we don't know. Again, what are the applications in use? Who is using them? And how are they using them, right? What are the sensitive data potentially sending into the AI for learning purpose, for training purpose, for different type of purpose? So let's take a look at what we can do. And this is the moment I'm more than happy, I'm thrilled to introduce the Shadow AI dashboards, which is just recently available for all the customers, partners who has subscription for CASB and the DLP, for example. All right. So again, the fundamental value is a single console. You don't have to switch different management console like merger acquisition type of SASE services your customer might be using. All right. We are using, again, single platform, single console, single management UI portal, which is what we call CMA, Cato Management Application, to manage, to monitor all type of service, including AI. So we have newly come out with this AI dashboard. Let's have a closer look. Starting from the snapshot, all right, which is the eagle view, which is a summary view. This is where we can easily get the whole information from the modern enterprise AI adoptions in terms of the breakdown of the risks of the application, the classification in terms of sanctioned, unsanctioned, in terms of number of the users, in terms of the sensitive data violations, and in terms of the network bandwidth utilization as well. All right. And of course, we also more than happy to categorize all the AI application we discover for this modern enterprise into different breakdown, different categories. And of course, as always, conversational AI tools is always on top of all the rest of the categories. This is pretty common. Again, this is thanks to the ChatGPT moments as well. We are really using the conversational AI tools to enhance, improve, promote our productivities in day-to-day for both business users and IT users as well. The next one would be the top sanctional application. So this is the drawing down into different type of applications, breakdown by the action we take, right? Block, monitor, allow, and breakdown by the top generative AI tools. And in terms of the top users, who are the top talkers? Top users consume most of the data using AI tools, and also from the user activity point of view. All right, what are the user activities when the user is using the AI tools? For example, upload the file or just purely chats in terms of conversation, or probably download the file or just login basis point of view, etc., etc. And again, this is always a journey. We are building the more user activities. We are not stopping here. We are building more activities along the way, along the road. So don't be surprised in 30 days down the road, in 3 months down the road, we are building more capabilities on top of these shadow AI dashboards as well. Next part would be the data protection, and this could be require your DLP licenses. The on top session may require the CASB license, and this data protection requires the DLP license to give you an in-depth view about the data, about the content, about the crown jewel of the modern enterprise. What are the data actually being used by these sanctional or unsanctional AI tools? Again, in terms of breakdown, in terms of the top down, the sequence of the user, of the policy violation, in terms of the file name, from the file uploads point of view, and also the top users who are sharing the sensitivity data from the sequential point of view. All right. This is really good. This is really good in terms of the value proposition to start the conversation with CIO and CISO for modern enterprise, right? From the risk mitigation point of view, this is always on top of the C level. If you're talking to working level, they may ask you the question about how to configure, right? How do I get the events out of this filtering? But when you talk to the C level, which is different level in the modern enterprise, the conversation totally changed. All right, the conversation totally changed. You have to talk about the risk mitigation. You have to talk about the improve, strengthening the security posture in terms of the enforced AI governance. All right. Of course, you have to talk about the compliance. How can we mitigate the risk of the exposure of the non-compliance? So these are the top 3 conversation point, talking point. You may start as an icebreaker to the C level. All right. You might not be using this for the working level, but this definitely will be essential talking points when you talk to the C level. Bear in mind with that, talking to a different audience, you require different resources and materials to start the conversation. All right. So this will be the great value proposition from the SASE CASB DLP point of view. Again, just a brief on the license. All right. You require CASB license. I briefly walk through with you the shadow AI dashboard. You definitely require CASB license, and at the second portion of the shadow AI dashboard, we require the DLP license to showcase you the data protections informations, which I just briefly walked through with you. All right, so shadow AI, access control, data protections. These are the 3 building blocks. Let's look at it one by one. shadow AI, we briefly talk about it, but I would like to talk about the assessment. All right, the assessment part of the shadow AI. So again, we look at the SaaS, we look at the cloud application, the AI application tools being used in organizations. Then we assess based on the risk scoring, based on the potential application posture management, and also we enforce access control, and also on top of that with the data protections. So I briefly talk about the how do we discover the AI tools. We also have a from the shadow AI dashboard point of view. So now we also have a repository. We use the repository to easily help you to discover what are the tools in our database and what are the risk scoring we have been lined up using our AI intelligence, using our machine learning capabilities with our threat intelligence feeds. We have incorporated into our database, which is a single pass scanning service engines. Individual tools wise, we can easily just expand the tools, AI tools, so we can easily see from the general compliance criteria point of view, from the security compliance point of view, even from the user activity point of view, what are the potential risks and threat these tools could pose to the modern enterprise. All right, it doesn't necessarily to say, let's say this tool having the risk score which is number 6, number 5, 7. It doesn't necessarily to say this could be malicious or suspicious, but it's just to showcasing you that the higher the risk number is, the higher likelihood these tools or application pose potential risk and threat vulnerabilities to your modern enterprise. It's fairly up to you, your corporate ID policy to allow to block the user using the tools based on your sanction policies. But again, we give you the data, the visibility statistics for you to make easier judgment, to make the best informed decision for your modern enterprise. All right. On top of that, we have access control. We have the data protection I mentioned about on top of the shadow AI, which is visibility and assessment. All right. This could be a quick summary to showcase that for all the users, be it a user in the office or user out of the office, all right, we can just enforce access control and the data protection using the Cato Cloud, which is the single pass cloud engine, which is what we usually call space. All right, this space engine is a single pass. We decrypt, encrypt user traffic for once. We share the context with all the various type of security services in terms of firewall as a service, secure app gateway, threat prevention, DNS security, IPS, anti-malware, CASB, DLP, RBI. With all of them, we make the best informed decision based on the IT policy we have in my organization. We start to take action differently for different users, different tools, different applications. All right, let's look at it. We have top 3 key use cases for inline CASB. The first one will be the AI category enforcement. All right. So throughout my session, you probably hear about the previous session with regards to CASB DLP from Cato SASE presentation. But my session is more tied to the AI, all right, which is the AI transformation for modern enterprise. So even from the top use case, when I talk about use case, I always highlighting about the key value proposition, the key use cases for AI adoption for modern enterprise. So the first one, AI category enforcement. If you look at the configuration here, one line configuration, again, enforced for users in office or out of office. We can easily just based on the risk scoring I mentioned earlier on top of the shadow AI, based on the assessment we have, we can easily enforce, all right, on top of the enforced access control on top of the judgment assessment we have done for individual SaaS tools and the AI tools we have. So we can create a rule for all the users, blocking them to use, for example, the risk score higher than 5, risk scoring 5. We can also create another rules, for example, for finance user. For finance user, I would like to block finance user using non-PCI DSS compliant AI tools, for example. And again, this is based on our assessment for all the AI tools. I can also create another rules, like I would like to block all the IT users using any non-MFA compliant AI tools, for example, right? So this is, again, this all comes down to risk mitigation, reduce attack surface, which is part of the zero trust framework, zero trust strategy we have laid out for modern enterprise in this AI transformation journey. The second use case will be the granular activities. And this is really comes down to individual application. For different application, we might have different granular activities. And this creates a lot of flexibilities, granularities for different user, how they can access different applications. All right. So for example, I would like to block finance users to send any files into the social medias like a Twitter, like X, but would like to still allow some of them using the view, the text posting, for example. So this could come down to the SharePoint, for example. I would like to allow my IT users or maybe new hire employees only download the file from the SharePoint, but blocking them to upload any files to the SharePoint or OneDrive, for example. And again, it's all up to the corporate ID policy. We're providing you the flexibility, the granularities. We can create different policies for different user with the different application capabilities as well. The third CASB key use case I would say is the tenant restriction. This is one of the key CASB use case I always like to share with the CISO and the CIO. This is basically to enforce the corporate employee device with the corporate user identity. They can only log in into the corporate tenant of the SaaS application of the AI tools in day-to-day. Again, it's all comes down to risk mitigation, reducing, minimizing the attack surface for the modern enterprise. All right. We have two ways to do that. Actually, we have a login-based tenant control. We have an application-based tenant control as well. So let's go through a short video from the login-based access control point of view. Again, this is the video for OpenAI for ChatGPT. So we block login using the third-party login. We block the login using personal login for OpenAI for ChatGPT tools, for example. We only allow the user logging into the corporate tenant, all right, which is using the enterprise might using the enterprise license of the OpenAI ChatGPT tools, which is Cato, which is what we are doing right now. All right. So let's quickly look at what we can enforce when the user trying to access the OpenAI in the corporate device, for example. So I'm trying to log in using the third-party login, Google, for example. It could be Microsoft, for example. Those are common single sign-on identity providers. So it got immediately blocked, right? Microsoft, Google, it's all blocking, even the Apple, for example. Now I'm changing to use, all right, let me try my personal account, right? Personal could be Gmail account, trying to access the ChatGPT OpenAI. Again, it's getting blocked, which is expected, which is what we are configuring in my CASB rules policies. All right, now I give up. I know what policy I need to follow. I'm changing my login into my corporate tenant, which is the Cato tenant, to my OpenAI ChatGPT tools. And yeah, that's the only way I can access to my AI tools. And this is one of the most common. Yeah, okie dokie. I can access the OpenAI tools using my corporate login credentials. So in fact, as a matter of fact, those CASB DLP default rules, smart default rules, we have been building in our CMA, which is the single management console you are using in day-to-day. So you don't have to feel blank in the beginning of the CASB DLP journey. And as a matter of fact, these are the OpenAI, the OpenAI policy I showcasing you just now is actually also part of the smart default recommender CASB DLP tools. If you access your CMA, coming down to the application data inline. This is where we configure inline CASB DLP policy. You will immediately get to see those are the smart default policies for OpenAI, even for Microsoft, for OneDrive, for Gmail, for all different type of services, not only for tenant restriction, but also for the AI category enforcement I mentioned earlier, and also the granular activities I mentioned earlier as well. So these are the top 3 use cases I would like to always share with the CISO, CIO, and even the working levels to show how easy, all right, you can leverage in our smart default policies to embark the journey of CASB DLP. So you don't feel blank in the beginning of the journey. It's the ease of adoption, ease of consumption in terms of the SASE service adoption as well. The second one would be the application-based access control. This is really comes down to individual SaaS application. Microsoft, of course, Microsoft is one of the key application we always like to enforce the tenant restriction for modern enterprise. So you really have to go to individual SaaS providers' website. You need to have get in-depth details configuration. Then we have to configure according to the provider's documents, provider's information, which is normally publicly available from their website. All right, so take Microsoft, for example. This is how easily we can get information from Microsoft, and we can, there we go, we can easily configure in the Cato CMA just within minutes. Within minutes, we can just configure accordingly based on the information. As long as we are familiar with the Microsoft information, the configuration instruction, we can easily just put it into our CMA configuration within minutes, all right, within minutes. Again, so this is how we can easily enforce. If I, for example, if I'm trying to log in my personal Office 365 account for my family, for example, no, that's not gonna happen in my corporate device, in the Zero Trust Network Access device, which is equipped with Cato agent, or maybe for the device just behind of the Cato socket. It's typically in the Cato in your corporate office, for example. And the one thing I want to highlight is that when we build a service, a new feature capabilities in our Cato SASE platform, it's always a journey. It's always continuous journeys that we continuously building more capabilities, more flexibilities, more granularities for individual features. In the beginning, we might not be perfect, to be honest, to be transparent with all the partners, APJ partners in this call. In the beginning, our feature might not be perfect as other market leaders, but we are keep improving that. For example, from the tenant restriction, we used to call in header injection. In the beginning, we don't allow the granular control for header injection or tenant-based restriction. Now we are building more improvement from the granularity point of view, from the flexibility point of view. Now we are able to allow the corporate to configure for different user groups to enforce the tenant restriction differently. For example, I would like to allow C-level, all right, my CEO, my CIO, CFO to access both corporate tenant and personal tenant. But I would like to enforce my IT users, HR users, finance users to only access corporate tenant. So we keep improving the granularity and the flexibility on top of the feature development as well. So this is exactly the moment I like, the momentum I like to working with Cato, with all our partners to create the momentum in the markets. All right, jumping into DLP, a quick overview from the traveling abroad perspective. This is how we passing through the passport control and customs. From the analogy point of view, what is the CASB? What is the DLP? DLP is really look at the data, the crown jewel of the modern enterprise. All right. Again, one of the key journey and building block to start the journey of DLP is the data classification. All right, this is the one of the common challenge that if the modern enterprise doesn't have a data officer, so inside of the modern enterprise, they already have hire someone called chief data officer or chief privacy officer, for example. They have an entire mature developed process to classify the data profile for the crown jewel, the data, the sensitive confidential data for modern enterprise. But if it's just a small, medium size of enterprise corporate, that could be slightly challenged because they don't have a process in place how I differentiate what are the data is confidential, what are the data is the normal non-confidential data, for example. So we give this flexibility, we give you the ease of consumption way to start the journey of data loss prevention. Um, we have our own data type, predefined data type for you to easily onboard the journey of DLP, for example. We can easily create a data profile based on the predefined data catalog, based on the financial data, based on the PII data, based on the healthcare data, based on the credit card information, for example. So those are the off-the-shelf smart default predefined data profile we are building in our CMA. The modern enterprise can easily adopt and start the journey with DLP. All right. So we also have the machine learning classifier. I'm gonna show you one of the quick video shortly as well. So as you can see, this is one of the simple rules I can just easily create to blocking user to upload the source code. So source code could be one of the predefined off-the-shelf data profile we put into the CMA profile as well. So you can easily leverage on that. I want to block all the user to send the source code, which is part of the confidential data crown jewel, send it to any AI tools, for example. And this reminds me one of the most famous data leakage incidents in ChatGPT, which is Samsung, right? If you just do a Google search for Samsung ChatGPT incidents, for example, you instantly you will get the news from the Google search. One of the Samsung engineer, they just trying to send the source data into the ChatGPT for learning purpose, for improving the coding purpose, whichever purpose, but it creates the data loss leakage. So the rising risk and threat, it could be intentional, it could be unintentional. So our mission is to help modern enterprise to mitigate the risk, to reduce attack surface, to have a peace of mind in the midst of the AI transformation era. The rest of the rules policy you can see is mainly for the compliance and the regulatory purpose. I mentioned earlier, this is one of the 4 key use cases, so that we can monitor. We can start to monitor first. We don't want to be so intrusive at the beginning of the DLP service start. We can be less intrusive and start the journey with monitor first, which is probably for audit purpose, probably for compliance regulatory purpose. These are all available in our CMA. We can easily just create the monitor actions for some of the user, for some of the application tools in terms of generative AI tools, and for some of the data profile, we can easily leverage on the predefined data catalog we have been building in our CMA repository database. All right, so a couple of key use cases in terms of ChatGPT, for example. So as you can see, if I'm trying to sending a credit card number information, basically we are using ChatGPT for, ChatGPT nowadays, and also Copilot and Gemini becomes our go-to tools. But in case we intentionally sending out any information like a credit card, immediately it got blocked. All right, which is for the good purpose, which is blocking users sending potential confidential data, which in terms of credit card information. In the Singapore context, by the way, I'm based out in Singapore. The NRIC number, a PIN number, passport number, those are the key confidential PII data. By no means we want to send it to ChatGPT or any AI tools. So with the enforcement of Cato SASE, ZTNA, and the DLP service, we can easily take remedial actions in the inline fashion, in the real-time fashion, we can block users sending those confidential data to the generative AI tools. All right, so this is one of the examples we can easily leverage a machine learning classifier. The use case will be nowadays, for example, the hiring manager, the talent acquisition, they are also smart. They're also trying to improve productivities. They are using generative AI tools like Gemini Copilot, ChatGPT to compare the candidate's profile. So the easiest way, I can copy and paste the resume data and send it into the ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT, can you do a comparison for me for these two candidates? Which candidates will be more tailor-made, will be tailor-fit for my organization environment, for example? This could be one of the easiest way to help talent acquisition or hiring manager to improve productivities. But again, this is not allowed if you enforce the user device using Cato ZTNA service and the DLP service. Immediately, we take the blocking actions to block user, again, intentionally or unintentionally sending those PII data, for example, sending into the AI tools, all right, AI tools. So these are the very common use case that we can easily start the conversation with the working level, for example, not only the C level, because when I demonstrate this quick demo to the working level, it also resonate pretty well, especially in this AI adoption transformation era. All right, we talk a lot about inline CASB. We talk a lot about inline DLP capabilities. Now let's look at how we can complement the inline CASB DLP with the API-based CASB DLP, which is basically the out-of-band CASB DLP capabilities to address the BYOD device, the third-party contractors, for example. So this is the blind spot. This is so-called the blind spot. If any device doesn't allow us to install the agent, if the device doesn't allow us to inspect, to turn on the TLS inspection for the device, or some of the modern application using certificate pinning doesn't allow us to inspect the application. So we have no visibility and no assessment, of course, no way to enforce our access control for those type of device, for those type of application. Doesn't allow us to do TLS inspection. So the only way we can do is to build the API connector to the various type of AI tools, SaaS application individually to get the in-depth statistics visibility and assessment, and in order for us to enforce access control on top of that. All right, so this is the key use case for unmanaged user device, for application, for tools, doesn't allow us to enforce TLS inspection. So from the holistic, from the complete unified CASB DLP service point of view, it always require inline and API based CASB DLP. So if you log into our KB, you will be easily browse through, explore the different information KB knowledge-based document for different service for API. So we have inline inspection for CASB, which is inline CASB. We have this API based CASB application control for individual applications. All right. So these are the list of the applications available as of today. You can always easily find what are the applications. And again, we are not stopping here. We are building the capabilities for more and more applications from the API connector point of view. All right. It's always a journey. It's always a journey that we are not stopping at any given point of time. We are constantly building capabilities along the way. And again, if you logging into our CMA under the tab of resource, if you go into the application activities, you will easily get to know, even without logging to the KB, you will easily get to know what are the applications building in this Cato SASE. As of today, we can support to build API connectors. Once again, don't be surprised, 30 days down the road, 3 months down the road, you will be seeing more and more applications, AI tools we are building into part of this AI SASE platform. So this is the cloud activity dashboard. which is combining both inline and API capabilities. All right, we have all the activities for basically for application activities. We also have the signing information activities we can showcase to the IT users and IT managers in day to day. So this is where we can build the connector to application to understand what are the all the activities, user activities, your employee in day to day trying to access AI tools and SaaS applications. And from the signing point of view, we can nowadays we support the Microsoft the ITP single sign-on integration, which is the Entra ID basically. So we can easily get to understand the login informations from the dashboard point of view. Let me dive into all of them individually. So this is the activity categories. All right, the activity categories we can easily showcase that from the downloading, uploading, the file sharing, the delete, and field logging. Right, the field logging, search and view, communication, collaboration, API integration, admin settings. So all type of the user activities we are trying to access the AI tool SaaS application. So we are showcasing you from the timeline perspective at which day, which given point of time, what are the activities is commonly used by your business users, for example. And this could be one of the indicator, right? This could be one of the indicator, for example, at the weekend, at the 3 a.m. in the weekend on the Sunday morning, if you do see a huge amount of downloading activities for one of the unsanctioned AI tools being used by one of the user device, which is not using a common browser, using a scripting. So that could be a strong indicator, I would say relatively strong indicator to indicate there's one of the device in your environment could be compromised and could be doing something suspicious and malicious. And again, this is the single pass scanning service engine. We combine not only CASB DLP, not only inline API, but together with other threat prevention, threat hunting, detection and response capabilities, and also the risk score for application. And most recently, we have the risk score for device for users. So combination of all the context, we make the best informed decision. Based on the indicator, we can easily tell what are the user, what are the device could be potentially compromised. All right, so this is to mitigate the risk. This is to reduce attack surface as always. Again, the signing activity, which is the second part of the cloud activity dashboard, this is required the integration with Microsoft Entra ID, so we can easily get to know what are the user activity from the field login point of view, from the login outside of the Cato point of view, from the anonymity point of view. All right. So again, these are all additional context, additional indicators for device for users across your organizations, which essentially helpful for user threat hunting and threat detections. All right, the last one will be the DLP. Let's look at the DLP. Likewise, we require out-of-band API DLP to address the unmanaged device and the application tools doesn't allow us to do the TLS inspection. From the KB perspective, this is how we can always easily showcase to browse through the documentation for inline for API DLP as well. As always, you can log into the CMA. You can easily get to know what are the applications we can integrate for data protection, for the API base, for the out-of-band DLP capabilities. Again, we have two separate dashboards. For inline DLP and for the API-based DLPs. So this can give us a holistic view for those inline and out-of-band SaaS AI tools usage from the day-to-day consumption, from the user activities, from the data violation, from the file violation, from the policy violation point of view. So from the key use case point of view, we have two, actually we have three. We have data protection, we have the threat prevention. If you and if your customer subscribe the API out of band Cato DLP service. All right, so let's look at it one by one. The data loss prevention, this is leveraging on our DLP capabilities with the action we can take from monitor point of view, and from remove share point of view, from quarantine point of view. All right. So this is a great capabilities for, again, for unmanaged device, for the application tools doesn't allow us to do the TLS inspection. We can start the journey with monitor, which is least intrusive, all right, to start the journey. And on top of that, we can always enforce remove share for the files that has the sensitive confidential data. We can quarantine some of the data when the user trying to upload to the AI tools, but contains those crown jewels deemed to be confidential. All right. The second use case, threat prevention. This is leveraging on the Cato threat prevention capabilities in terms of anti-malware, NG anti-malware. When the user trying to upload the file contains the malware, contains the virus into our corporate tenant of Office 365, Google Workspace, for example, potentially pose the vulnerability to my corporate SaaS environment, AI environment. We can take the actions immediately to block, to quarantine the file into the folder, into one of the quarantine folder, which is only visible to the IT administrator for Microsoft or Google Workspace, which is basically the application administrator, which is only visible to administrator. All right. And on top of that, we have the security checks, all right, which is the third capabilities, which is very similar to SaaS security posture management, all right, capabilities. This is the way we showcase what are the best recommendation, best practice from the industry recommendation point of view for individual SaaS application AI tools. We would like to showcase to working level, to the IT manager and the C level as well. So this is a journey. When you embark the journey of the SaaS security posture management, let's do our best to enhance, strengthening our posture management for the SaaS adoption, for the AI tools adoptions. All right, this is the short demo to showcasing you that we can easily create different tools under the data protection. This is part of the SaaS security API. Most recently, we renamed these capabilities in CMA and changed to data and data API, which is app data API, which is basically the outer band API, which is the API based DLP capabilities. So as you can see, we have been creating the profile. The DLP profile is the same profile you created for the inline DLP. So again, this is the power of combining. This is the power of combining both inline and the outer band CASB DLP capabilities. You create a data profile, and both your inline capabilities and outer band capabilities can use the same profile you created for your data, for your crown jewel in your modern enterprise. You don't have to create separate product, a separate profile, separate policy in the different console for inline, for outer band, for example. All right. So if you look at the tools, we remove the share for those files deemed to be containing the confidential data. All right. So we can easily find out the events in the Cato CMI, again, in the same SASE console for both inline and offline, right? You don't have to hop out into different console for different service, for different features capabilities. The second one would be the second use case will be the quarantine. For example, if I'm traveling, again, if I'm trying to uploading any confidential data into the server, into the file, into the Google, and maybe SaaS and maybe AI tools, we also quarantine the file to one of the hidden folder, which is only visible to the IT administrators. All right, so these are the capabilities we have, combining both AI tools, combining both inline and offline. So we also have these reports, all right? The generative AI reports align with all the rest of different type of reports. We are building for visibility for C-level visibility purpose, right? C-level without normally they don't require to log into the CMA in day to day. These are the top 5 value proposition we can easily put up for C-level, CISO, CIO, all right? So this will be the conclusion for today's webinar with the top 5 value proposition we can always leverage to use as a icebreaker to start the conversation with the CIO and the CISO. All right, so that's on top of the 15 minutes, I guess. I will leave it to some of the few minutes for Q&A. Feel free to let us know, unmute yourself and text your questions in the chat. I'm more than happy to address.
Yeah, Lynn, if you can stay on this page, there are 2 questions in the Q&A box. So the first question is from Rohit. Will it be able to control the usage of public applications using corporate accounts? He gives example, naukri.com/indeed.com and many more similar job portals in an organization. Is the question clear, or do you want Rohit to explain?
Okay. Oh, that's a good question. Thanks, Rohit. So that's a really good question. In terms of the development for CASB and DLP, though these are really specific to application, tools, domain, services are commonly available in the internet world. So like I mentioned, it might or might not be available as of today, to be honest, but keep providing the feedback to us. We are building capabilities and service addition to what we have as of today. And we value your feedback. We are building the service based on the feedback among the partners, among the modern enterprise end users. We are enhancing our product and service, especially for CASB DLP. And as you know, CASB DLP is the ever-evolving landscape for modern application, modern tools in this digital transformation era. We can never stop in any given point of time. We just need to keep our heads down and keep building capabilities for different service, different domains. I will not have the concrete answer for these 2 services at this moment, but let us know. Reach out to us after the call. We are more than happy to do the due diligence and let you know. If it is not available as of today, we are more than happy to raise the RFE, which is the request feature enhancement, for our modern for commonly more available for our modern enterprise users and the partners as well. We value your feedback basically. Yeah. Thank you for the question, Rohit.
Thanks, Lynn. If anyone wants to ask live questions, because we've only got 3 minutes left, put up your hand and then I'll unmute you. Meanwhile, second question from Data World team. Do API DLP require additional API license model apart from the CASB DLP module?
Oh yeah, great question. All right, I guess I missed out this. Hey, sorry. Let me jump back my previous slide. That's a great question. I guess I missed out this in the previous presentation. All right, it's a great question. I appreciate that Data World you brought up this in my end of presentation session today. Okay, we do have some changes and updates from the licensing point of view for both CASB and DLP. Let's talk about the CASB first. All right, starting from this year 2025, we combine the inline CASB license and API CASB license into one, meaning to say whoever subscribed the CASB license, inline CASB, API CASB, both these 2 are available to whoever subscribed CASB license. So CASB license consolidate into one. Previously, we have 2. We have one for inline, one for API. Now we consolidate into one. This is starting from 2025. All right, this is the CASB license updates. DLP, all right, DLP license still remains separated, meaning to say, when you subscribe DLP license, if you only subscribe inline DLP, you only get to use inline DLP. Until you subscribe API, a separate license for API DLP, which is separate license, you will have both inline DLP and API DLP. But also we have updates for API DLP license starting from 2025 as well this year. Previously, we need to have separate license for individual application connector, API connector. Microsoft have one license, Google have another license, Zoom, Teams have a different license. But now is one license for API DLP. So once you subscribe the out-of-band DLP, which is API DLP, you can use all the application connector for API DLP, all of them. So we consolidate API DLP into one. But from the inline DLP, API DLP perspective, it still remain two separate licenses. And one thing I want to highlight, for any user customer subscribe DLP license, CASB license is a prerequisite. Let me rephrase it again. CASB license is a prerequisite of the DLP license. I hope I make myself clear about the licensing. But again, if you have any further questions, feel free to reach out to us. We would like to. We are more than happy to do further clarification as well. So that's a brief clarification for licensing for CASB DLP.
Thanks, Lynn, and thanks, Data World, for the question. Like Lynn said, if it's something you want further explanation, talk to the channel account managers, the CAMs, or the SEs if you are reaching out and working with them. Is anyone wanting to ask question? Put up your hand while I launch the wrap-up poll. It's just 3 simple questions. It shouldn't take you more than a minute. But anyone else who wants to stay on, you have questions, raise your Zoom hand, and then I'll unmute you. But otherwise, please take the poll before you drop off the call. I thank you for staying on, for participating, and hopefully this session has been a good use of your time. We will see you in June again. The topic and the registration form will be out shortly. Any questions? I'm monitoring the Zoom hands.